Hello. Thank you all for coming. My name is Liz. I'm your MC tonight. So we're all here tonight with a common goal, which is to make Portland, Maine the winter cycling capital of the world, right? Our current competition is a town in Finland called Oulu. Oulu, yes. Yeah. Apparently over 12% of the population cycles through the winter. So if Portland's population is just over 68,000 people, that means we have to get about 8,200 people out there this winter. So I think we can do it. Yeah. So we're gonna kick things off tonight with a panel. We'll get to hear from our expert panelists, and then we're going to open it up to a Q&A with the audience, and then we're going to have a kind of informal show and tell / gear demo with lots of cool giveaways and stuff. So I'd love to have you all introduce yourselves, tell us your name, your role in life or your job, and your favorite, either your choice, your favorite winter biking tip or your favorite bike themed joke or comment. So I'll kick it off. My name is Liz. As I mentioned, I work at TED Talks. I'm a mom and a year-round cyclist. And my favorite winter biking tip is to bring a hot beverage with me on a ride. I just started doing this. So before I head out, I made a big thermos of hot tea, and it's really changed my life. So Dave, why don't you kick it off?
My name is Dave Cohen. I'm in South Portland and transplanted here from Vermont, Brattleboro, Vermont. And I'm actually, I work as a consultant for the state of Vermont, providing consultations for Vermonters around electric bikes, cargo bikes, winter biking. So it's the only program of its kind where people actually contact me and I get personalized guidance. It's a lot of fun. I help people through the whole process. I really enjoy living in Portland. I love winter biking. And my favorite tip or well, I started something in Brattleboro with a bunch of winter bikers and decided to call themselves Brattle Bikers.
Hey everyone, my name is Danny Walczak. My pronouns are she, her. I live in Portland, and what do I do for work? I work at Purple Street. I work in our food security hub, cooking meals for folks there. My favorite winter biking tip is to wear lots of wool on all of your layers.
Hi everyone, my name is Allie Crooker, and my pronouns are she or hers, and I am a student at UNE. I'm an occupational therapy student, and I work at Eastern Mountain Sports also. Another role, I'm a dog mom. That's an important one. Yeah, and my favorite winter bike tip is to grow a beard. Winter makes really warm.
Thank you. So our questions are kind of grouped thematically. We're going to start with motivation. We're going to talk about gear, safety, and bike maintenance. So I think I'll just call on you unless you feel strongly you want to jump in. This first question is actually, it'd be great if all of you could answer it, I think. And it's, where do you ride in the winter and why? And what motivates you to ride throughout the winter?
Usually it's not for like recreation, it's always for picking up groceries and going to the co-op here to Trader Joe's, to Whole Foods downtown. I always make this round and picking. I have a cargo bike, so I'm sometimes carrying upwards of like 150 pound cargo. We also have a couple of cargo bikes. I love it. For me, the very first time I went into biking, we moved from California, Berkeley, California to Brattleboro, Vermont, and the first winter I was just like, oh my God, I was kind of depressed. I really missed California. But once I found winter biking, it just became my motivation for just going shopping. And like my wife said, I think we should look. Okay, I'll go with it.
Yeah. So I have biked to work a lot in the past. I don't currently bike to work right now, but I do bike pretty much everywhere else to do errands, like you said, sometimes for fun, but mostly I like to do the extended ride home where I'm out, I'm going somewhere and I can take a long way and be outside a little bit longer. And I think the reason why I like to winter bike the most is it gets me outside, especially this time of year when the days are very short and it's hard to get enough sunlight, get some fresh air. And I think taking that time each day to just slow down and be outside has really, it helps me feel more grounded in winter.
What motivates me? I commute to work at EMS and it's really far. I live on Cumberland and I have to go down the hill. So that's my main motivation. No, that's a fun little ride down EMS, and I get some groceries. Danny's partner Diggory made me a basket that can fit groceries for a family of 15. So that's great. Just to get outside and get some sunlight. Winter biking, it's really invigorating. It wakes me up in the morning. So that's really nice. And yeah, it's just fun to get on different conditions on your bike, and I don't sweat as much as I do in the summer. And I like to bike pretty much around Portland. I try and avoid the backcountry because it gets really icy. And Evergreen Cemetery is really fun in the winter. I would bike there in between classes sometimes last winter, so just for a career break. That's about it.
This question is for Dave. What do you see as the biggest challenges one faces as a winter cyclist?
Cars. It's the fact that, my other work is as a psychotherapist, and I do presentations about the kind of the psychology of transportation, how we move on this earth and why that really matters. And so, cars, because we are a kind of hyper-technologically modified organism. Once we're in the automobile, and our sensory awareness, whether it's sight, hearing, smelling, everything is impoverished in terms of its extension to the outside world. So you're really a compromised human being when you're in an automobile. You're limited to just flashing lights, as far as communication, honking, or maybe shouting out a window. As far as humanity, our communication with others, the automobile, which literally means automatic mobility, is, again, it's a reduced form of humanity. Again, our emotional connection, our sensorial connection, our embodied connection to the world. So that I see as huge problems, that you've got people that have supersized their bodies and they're out there pretending that this is totally normal. Now, there are a lot of other problems, of course, usually it's maintenance issues. Trying to ride up Pasco Bay Bridge, man, that can be really bad. I just rode on the Greenway Trail in South Portland, and just poorly maintained, unlike the Eastern Trail here, the Eastern Promenade. There's some really icy, bumpy conditions that don't maintain that. And that goes on throughout the year. It gets really crusty and nasty, but it actually becomes a nice challenge. But for a lot of people, it's going to be prohibitive. And then other challenges are just, for a lot of people, are just know-how. And that's why these things are so important. It's really learning some of the tips, and everybody has got, I'm sure, 3 tips, I guess, how to do it. And the other thing is really the perceived danger. A lot of people perceive a lot of danger than more dangerous than it actually is once you really learn those skills. And so things like that. There's a lot of other things about winter cycling, like knowing when to not ride. I think is super important as well. And then really learning how to practice on ice. I used to just go out onto frozen ponds and lakes in Vermont and ride. So these are class taught me a lot. And then teaching people how to really identify different kinds of, like the brown sugar, so snow, what to look out for, when to slow down, and how not to.
Thank you. By the way, is there anyone here from the city of Portland tonight? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, from
What? Like from the government?
No.
Oh, okay. Just curious. Awesome, thank you. So let's move on to gear. I think this is another question that I'd love to ask all three of you. If you had to choose, what are your top 3 essential items for winter biking, gear-wise?
Let's see, I think having a nice warm pair of boots is really important. I wear these when I'm riding, which are just leather boots, and I have a wool insole, and then that keeps my foot pretty warm, but it's still kind of breathable. I think pokies are super important. I often don't wear a lot of like heavy gear on my body, but I like to keep my hands and feet warm, and as long as those 2 things are warm, I'm pretty good. And the third thing, good attitude.
Lights are definitely probably the most important for one of my 3. Multiple of them too, because my batteries usually die, so it's good to have a backup. I always bring a headlamp too, just in case. Long johns and a vest, because I love vests. I love when my core is warm, and I wear long johns anytime it's 40 degrees or below. And I guess the third would be like somewhere to store your layers, so like a bag or a basket or something. Because if you're riding for a long time, you'll get warm, and you don't want to sweat too much when you have cold air coming at you. So it's good to delayer while you can. Yeah.
Vests. Yeah. I love vests. I've heard of these. Really great. Definitely the best person. Best. I'm controversial here. I think as a mirror, I have mirrors on all my, especially for cargo bikes. It's really good to have a mirror because you don't want to be turning around looking like who's coming at you. The only time I actually ever turn around to look at a car is to make sure that they know I'm a human being on a bicycle. And sometimes when they see somebody turning, you're in this impoverished sensorial environment. You see something moving outside that's on this thing that you might think it's a bicycle, but you don't think it's a human being on it. Once you turn around, then there is that kind of contact. So I'll turn around, but I'm usually using my mirror just so I'm not like really letting myself off balance. Particularly if I'm riding my son. Often my son gets up late and can't get to school on time, so I'm going to rely on my cargo bike. In the winter, yeah, you have to be super careful. I think the best thing, and I'd add in some kind of eye protection, because if it's snowing, I go back to movie theater it was somewhere out there, and it was snowing and raining, and I, if I didn't have glasses on, just some people use goggles, but clear glasses really would not fall into see.
Thank you. Let's see. I'm gonna ask Al this question because we chatted over your bike. Are studded tires really necessary? And what are the advantages?
My opinion on studded tires is studded tires, only because I only ever winter bike with studded tires, so. I don't actually have like a full perspective on which is better necessarily. I think that really just depends on the rider. My comfort level, I like to have studded tires. I like to ride pretty slow in the winter, and I'm a little bit of a cautious rider in the winter, so the studs just add kind of that extra security for me. And then if you do happen to, like, by chance to any patches of ice or anything, they add that extra grip while you're riding. So yeah, I'm a fan of studded tires. Yeah. But I'm also biased because that's all I've used.
Danny, you kind of already touched on this, but could you go into in a bit more detail about how you keep your hands and feet warm when you're out riding in the winter?
Yeah, I think, I'm trying not to repeat the things I said. I think like wearing wool helps a lot because when you sweat, you can still stay warm with wool. I do use pokies that are like fleece lined, but I often wear like a liner glove underneath those. So when I'm hand signaling, my hand stays warm. I have like a dream of having like gloves with like lights on them or something. So when I like hand signal, that'd be kind of cool, right? Yeah. Let's see. Hands stay warm pretty well in the pokies, and then, oh yeah, great question. Pokies are, there's some pairs over here, but they're kind of like a warm oven mitt that goes on your handlebars that you can stick your hands in and reach your brakes, and easily pull your hand out without it getting stuck in there. They like stay on your handlebars. Yeah, I think like having warm hands and warm feet go a long way. Sometimes if it's really, really cold, I'll get those hand warmers and put them in my pokies, and they can just live in there while they bike to work. Yeah.
One thing that we learned, like when I started winter biking in Vermont, was mainly to bring my son to school. And there's a whole story behind it, like we're going into that, but we found that it sometimes got down to like, 2 degrees. My wife was just like, you guys crazy. And so what we did was we always had our gloves and our shoes right with pellet stove. So they started off warm, and we were riding electric assist cargo bikes, so we had the battery, nice and close and not too hot. And then we like put on all our clothes and started doing breakfast, and we reached like critical heat where it was like so impossible that we only just wanted to go outside, and that really worked for us. And we were usually nice and warm. So yeah, keeping those shoes warm, gloves warm. One thing I also do is I buy oversized gloves so that I can put in underliners. Actually, I use diving gloves, neoprene for the underliners. Works really great. It's kind of different thickness, when really thick, something thick. So.
Thank you. I think maybe we should move on to safety. So as we know, winter biking brings its own safety challenges with shorter days and ice and other challenges. So what safety gear do you recommend? If you had to pick, this is for all of you, if you had to pick like one piece of safety gear, what would it be?
One safety gear. Well, it depends. Day or night. It's a night. Yeah. Night. Well, night is like great lights. Like so, on my electric cargo bike, I installed 1,000 front headlight, and this thing is like looks like the sun was coming out of it. But it's so useful for, especially during the winter. You have to see those snow conditions. If you're not ready for brown sugar or some other kind of mash stuff like that, that can be dangerous. So you really need really good front light, and then a really great rear light. I think the rear light is like over 100, super bright, on solid. And then one nice thing about electric bikes, just add, is that the battery pack powers, the main light, so it's all like, integrated. You don't have to think about something. The power of my battery light, so, it's all ready to go.
I agree that lights are really important, but I'll also add that having like a nice bright vest, often like a reflective vest, is really important, and I find that that helps a lot, especially when like there's a lot of low light conditions and people aren't used to seeing cyclists on the road. And if you're trying to be a bit more assertive and like get into a lane or like make a turn, it's a little more easy for people to see you and you're like a bigger object to them. So.
I'll just repeat and re-emphasize lights. I think it's super important again. But also, like for your own like personal safety, like your body, just again having enough layers, having the right clothing, and then also like water. Just make sure it's really easy to get dehydrated in the cold. It's really hard to drink water, especially if the water's cold. But it's super important to remember to drink water as much as you would in warmer weather.
I think I would like to ask Danny this question. What are your best practices for riding on the road in terms of like taking corners and dealing with ice and making yourself visible with the cars?
I'd say in general, I try to ride on trails as much as I can in the winter and in the summer. But that's like partially why I have studded tires, is because they often are icy. The trails are icy, and anytime I can just like get away from cars, I think that that's like what I enjoy the most and the time where I can slow down the most. But that being said, I think times that I can take up the whole lane, like especially in town when there's a lot of parked cars, is really important. Watching out for like manhole covers with the studded tires can be a good one, and like the brick sidewalks can get pretty slippery. Yeah, I think like the part between where like the plow has gone and the sidewalk starts, there's like a nice like bar of snow. Learning how to like go perpendicular right into that, I think is helpful. Let's see what else. Yeah. And another thing I'll mention, which seems kind of silly, but just like when you step off your pedals, you don't have studs on your feet often. And that's like a good thing to remember, I think, when you're in icy environments, because often when you're stopping and getting off your bike, it's like on the sidewalk where there's a lot of ice. And, yeah.
Just in Vermont, I actually sometimes have traction shoes or studs on my feet, because I stop and my son is on the back, and you hit ice and the whole bike go down. So there are quite a few times when I.
Thank you. I think you guys covered all of my questions about safety. So let's talk about maintenance. Let's see, Allie, how do you maintain and reduce wear and tear on your bike when using it throughout the harsh winter months?
I would say always wipe it down after you ride, and like anytime you ride in the winter, because obviously we're in New England and there's salt everywhere. So if you could just like find a paper towel or keep like an old shirt or cloth on you and just wipe around your drivetrain. And then I would lubricate it like probably once a week at least, just to make sure it's staying maintained. And I fortunately am able to keep my bikes inside, but if you're not able to, you might want to like up that maintenance if you have it outside all winter, just make sure the elements aren't getting at your bike more frequently. Yeah, just keep an eye on it. Look at your bike like you would look at it if it's like your girlfriend. Just kidding.
One just like quick trick that I use is I have like one of those squirty like bike water bottles that fit your water bottle cage, and I will go in my house like either heat up water in the tea kettle or just like get really hot water from the tap and use that to like squirt down my bike before I bring it inside in the winter, get some of that salt off. And really like paying attention to like the undersides of your bike and like where your rack attaches and all these like little crevices where salt can get kind of pesky.
I have like this big garden brush, and I used to actually just get all the snow rock and stuff and then like the gravel, sometimes, that little dirt kind of sooty matter, and just, get that off, that's really important. Also, I've been using this, lubricant called Eco Sheet, which is made from mountain mainly, and I found that to be great. You have to apply it a little bit more, but it has like one of those like really nice brushes that you used to have for rubber cement, and so you can brush it on. It's kind of cool. Feels like a large brush. I found it really works well, and you wipe the chain down, and especially with all the salt, it actually does a great job. So it's called Eco Sheet, and you can, and it's only sold online, unfortunately, but I like it, and it's not toxic too. You can eat it.
And this could be for anyone. What should you look for before you set out on a ride? When you're going out, headed out in the morning, or whenever you go out and ride, what should you check on your bike at home?
I would check the air pressure in your tires, because they're gonna lose air probably more quickly than they usually would. And the weather. I guess that's.
I often do like sort of a checklist when I bring my bike home, like so I do my like bike cleaning, and then I will like plug all my lights in and kind of like gather all the warm things that I need for the morning, and all my tire pressure.
I think in most super cold days, again, the idea of putting all the socks and shoes and gloves, and whatever else near a kind of heat source that you start off warm. That's a big thing. Tire pressure is really big because if you got a lot of snow out there and it's like, one of these days not so sure, you might want to actually put some air pressure out. So your studs have. So really having a tire gauge, I think, is important, and really experimenting with the tire pressure, because if you have pretty high pressure, you're not going to get quite the grip on the ice work. You actually probably ride better with the snow. It really depends on the conditions. And then knowing when not to ride, that's always important. Hardly ever been, but I'll tell you, we're making an exact date.
What are the conditions under which you choose not to ride?
When? I thought you were like, that you kind of poking at me. No, what, don't you ride every single day? If there's a certain level of snow that's on the ground, you can have the plows been out, and visibility conditions, so sometimes it just doesn't make sense to ride. Yeah, that's important.
I agree, and something to keep in mind is like on my way back from the snowstorm, will there be like a lot more snow? Because I think that's happened to me a lot of times where I've been like, oh, it's snowing, so fun, I'm gonna bike to work, and then had to bike home and like a lot deeper snow that was a lot more challenging. And I think often a lot of the ways that we all bike around is on like back roads or like away from major throughways, and those are often the roads that get plowed last. So and the sidewalks and the bike paths, and it goes down the line. So those are things that I usually keep in mind.
I agree. So, I don't know. I don't really have anything else to add to that.
Just a little plug for cargo bikes, so particularly long-tail cargo bikes. They actually, I found, do better in the winter. The longer wheelbase with greater stability, Then when you add the ESS, and particularly for climbing hills, it would really be an extraordinary experience. And we did things you could just never do on an acoustic bike, or acoustic cargo bike. I know acoustic bikes, yeah. So, yeah, long bikes, yeah. So long tail cargo bikes is just such this elegant kind of feel to them in the winter. And then you got passenger on the back and you've got rear wheel drive. Like this bike has a mid-drive motor. The traction is pretty incredible. But then you have to be careful once the passenger gets off. Everything changes.
So a lot of those questions were submitted via the Portland Bike Party Instagram. So thanks to everyone who submitted questions. And then I'd like to turn it over to the audience for our Q&A for the end of the evening. So if you want to just raise your hand and shout, we're all friends now, or even take my, I see a hand over there. Eric, what's your question?
Repeat his question.
Yeah.
Repeat the question.
Yeah, so the question was, if you have studded tires, do you have to be riding on ice? Can you ride them on regular roads?
You can ride them on regular roads. That's not a stupid question at all. The studs on studded tires are kind of like those you would have on your car tires. So they're like pretty small. They're not like micro spikes that you would have on your feet or anything like that. They make like a nice clicking noise on the pavement as you go by, and pedestrians might be like, whoa. You get a lot of strange looks sometimes, but they'll slow you down a little bit, and it doesn't always like feel the greatest, but on ice, I definitely like it.
Yes.
Yes. Denise, who's online watching, has asked specifically to Danny, what trails do you ride on in the winter? The question's a little confusing. Oh, what bike that you use to ride on trails in the winter? What kind of bike?
Okay, so the question is, what trails do you
No,
ride?
what kind of bike do you
What kind
use?
of
I
bike?
misread the question originally. What kind of
Gotcha.
bike?
Yeah, what kind of bike do you ride on the trails?
It's a specialized rock hopper. I think it's a 96. I'm not sure. It's old. Do you know, Jake? You might know. Yeah, I have 26 by 1.9 inch stud tires, and I don't like go mountain biking in the winter, but you know, I ride around the Back Cove or through Kenko Woods, Evergreen Cemetery. I like to like I said before, extend my commute home through different trails, link things together.
Yes.
This is a question probably more targeted towards Dave. I'm a new winter e-bike commuter, and I'm a little afraid about taming the beast that is the electric assist. What e-bike specific tips do you have for winter commuting? I have a rear drive 500 watt, so it's electric, like a electric XP.
Yeah, so tips about riding an electric bike during the winter. You have a rear hub motor. Yeah. You know, it's very much like anything else, like any other bike, except you have a battery and a motor. And so you need to protect the electronics. And that doesn't really, you know, most of it depends on your bike. Most of them are pretty like over molded plugs where all the connectors are meeting each other, and usually there's no water ingress into that. The thing that always concerns me is you don't want to park your bike outside in the snow near where it gets splashed by salt, because if you take your battery pack off, then your battery terminals are kind of exposed. and you can get some damage, rust, with the salt and all that. And as far as like, your battery pack, you want to, take that off, bring it inside. You don't want to leave that out. You don't ever want to charge a very cold battery, wait for it to kind of warm up. That's a really important thing. And you're gonna get, it's not as efficient during the winter, but you can your battery pack pretty warm and just get onto the bike. The internal resistance from the cells will actually heat the pack a little bit up. If you're riding super cold, sometimes people actually do a little thermal wrapper with their battery pack. But other than that, usually the systems are pretty darn robust in terms of the waterproofness. Even the motors, very few, very little water will get into the system, if any at all. But it really depends on what the model is making. But most of them are pretty well.
Thank you.
Hey, Dave, maybe talk about the difference between mid-drive and hub-based in terms of that, how it might react on slippery roads.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest problem.
Pedal assist as opposed to throttle is what.
So there's some a lot of online bikes will have throttles on them. And there'll be a thumb throttle, sometimes a twist throttle, and those can be really hard on your tires, particularly studded tires. And if you get really goofy and decide to burn some rubber, you're gonna also burn studs and they come flying out and hit somebody in the head. That probably can happen. But you actually really need damage your studded tires and expensive. So you got to be really smart about that. And so pedal assist is better. That means like you can hit your control panel. You can get level 1 assist, which is the light assist, level 2 and 3 and up. And you got to know your system, how it reacts, because you don't want to again lose your studs. That's an issue. And and as far as like mid-drive motors, which I have in my cargo bike, you want to take a look at it afterwards. And rear hub motors, they're about the same in terms of their kind of preparedness for winter riding. But I find that actually I can get places faster so that if it's super cold, I don't have to experience all the coldness, especially with the passenger.
Thank you. Myself, I'm in the back. Yes.
Yeah, I want to go out for a suggestion if I might about the studded tire question. My commute is between Westbrook and Main Mall, so it's mostly suburban roads with faster car traffic, and the roads are fine 80% of the time in the winter, as long as there hasn't been a recent storm. So I didn't want to ride studded tires all winter. So what I did is I got a new mountain bike and I put studded tires on that. And when I wanted studded tires, I just used that bike instead. I didn't have to run them every day. Right? Good for me.
Having a backup bike. Yes.
So I've been out of the north for a little while, but I'm curious if you all have kind of like, there are like times of the year, if there's like a certain event that happens where you start changing over, assuming you're all year-round riders as well, like when do you start changing over your equipment? Like when do you put studs on? When do you start breaking out different gear? Is it like the first snow? Is it like the next snow that we haven't got yet?
So the question is, at what point in the year do you change over to your winter gear and studded tires?
I would say I change over like all the warm clothes and things like that way sooner than studded tires. Pretty much as soon as, like, I'll wear like thick gloves for a while, and then once that becomes too cold, I'll throw the pookies on. But as far as studded tires go, I just put mine on a few days ago. Usually it's like after there's ice present and I'm like, all right, I'll do it. Slow down. And in the spring, I'll usually wait until I'm pretty certain it's not gonna freeze over again to take them off. And I have another bike as well. So if I'm really dying to ride without studded tires, I'll use that.
Yeah, probably the same. Definitely clothing wise is early for me. And can't emphasize layers enough. And I'm also a procrastinator, so I usually don't put my studded tires on until I have like a sketchy experience. I'm like, oh, I should probably do that. even though you can see the snow on the ground yet. Yeah, but I also don't like generally have a super far commute or anything, so it's not a huge concern all the time. So.
I'd say there's one other thing to think about is when to take them off. And because like, by the end of the season, you're like, you just like to take them off because you like your birds, you know, they were calling you. You know, just figuring that out, looking at the forecast, it's really nice that we got that kind of thing now. Oh, it's going to be like, it's going to be warmer, I'm going to be able to do that. I also have a regular mountain bike that I use during the winter. I'm going to actually be trying out some Continental winter tires that are non-studded. So they're more like car winter tires, soft rubber, that really work during the winter. Because I don't want to always be riding around stuff tires. So I'm going to try that out. I just ordered it. Whoopee. Yeah.
I would also say, like, along with checking the weather, in like the in-between seasons, just check what the night temperatures are gonna be, because as the snow is melting, if you're riding super early, it might be ice. So that's a good kind of determining factor as to when you might want to take off your studded tires or not.
Anyone else? I think we have time. Yeah, yeah.
How do we get 12,000 people to ride their bikes in the winter?
Dave, you can answer.
Well, I went to the 5th International Winter Cycling Congress in Montreal back in, I think it was 2017. And there were a whole bunch of people there from Ulu. And Ulu is 100 miles from the Arctic Circle. And it gets butt cold there. But they've got an amazing technology where they have a whole substrate that they line their bike paths with. Most of them ride studded tires. You don't need studded tires the way they're doing it. Although things are changing with climate change and their temperatures are rising a bit, and so they're pushing that. So how do we do it? I don't know. How we do it? I think really, I think things like this are really important. But I think maybe like, more like winter riding expos, races, or like if you look at what's going on in Minneapolis, they have a really vibrant winter riding scene, and they've got like, winter like bike hockey, like we get injured, but it's a lot of fun. And all kinds of other fun events like riding on ice, and then people come out and are really curious about it. So I think actually electric bikes will be really super helpful. And the other thing I'd last say is like there's a whole technology revolution happening around internal gearing and belt drive. And so talking about maintenance-free or really maintenance-reduced bikes that are out there. There's a company called Priority Bikes that is online, but they make some really great belt drive internal gearing bikes. Some of them have gearboxes up in the bottom bottom bracket, where the bottom bracket is, where they have rear internal gearing, but you don't have to move anything. It really changes the dynamic of a lot of people that are a little intimidated by the maintenance issue.
I think creating like greater ease with public transportation in general, like I think being a pedestrian in the winter here is incredibly challenging. And I think if all non-car transportation was easier, there would be more community around that and we would see each other on the streets doing that. I find that biking in the winter can be really, really isolating, and you often feel alone and feel like everyone you interact with is angry at you or just wants you to not be there. And I think like having events like this or like bike party or all sorts of other, anytime you can like ride with someone somewhere feels like really important to me in building community around biking in the winter and all year round. Yeah, making more viable for everyone.
And in addition to like public transportation, I think the biggest thing is just like advocating to the city of Portland, making the roads safer for cyclists, for making more public transportation, but also just allowing pedestrians and cyclists to have a safer roadway. and feel comfortable on, because it's such a fun sport and we want to make it accessible to everyone, but it's unfortunately not always. So yeah, I think just using your voice as much as you can.
And reminding people that riding your bike can also be fun still in the winter. It's not just like trudging through the snow. Like you can see some really beautiful things riding your bike in the winter.
I think Winston has handled, but you mentioned something about what you've noticed in terms of the number of people riding in the winter.
Yeah, I think over the last 10 years,
And Winston, make a pitch.
Yeah, hi, I'm Winston. I'm the chair of the Portland Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. So we try to make noise, noise like this, all kinds of noise, try to get the council to take action. And I think I've noticed over the last 10 years, I've been growing for 10 years, I've really seen, there's more of you now than there ever were. Sometimes I've seen on like snowy, wintry days at my job, 5 bicycles in the bike rack. There's barely anywhere for me to park. When I moved here, I was the only one. So, we are on track, like it's happening. Even though the infrastructure has barely changed, we're changing. So, kind of on that, as the, chair of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, I have to ask you guys, what would you tell the city to do? What do you think the biggest policy priority should be to get people to make it more possible to bicycle in winter and year round?
I think like the city of Toronto has a special, winter biking thing that's run through the city. So really getting a city kind of program where they're actually promoting it, promoting safe streets. And then, of course, there's the plowing issue, really a lot of detail work to make sure that, there's rooms for cyclists. But I think getting the city behind it, this is like, the start of new form of transition. One thing I say is a bicycle itself is not green. It's green when we get on it and become human beings in contact with the social and ecological environment framework that we've been existing. If we want our cities just to be the sole domain machine, so be it. But if the city really wants to take on the idea of people actually showing up in the streets even in the winter, I think that they should have an official program being teaming up with the advisory committee.
I think that's a great answer. To Winston's point, I went to this event maybe 4 years ago when it was at the zoo, and there was like 7 of us there. So it's really great to see all of you here today. Let's see. In addition to all the things Steve said, I would include just more emphasis and more money put towards plowing sidewalks and repairing sidewalks, and like having that be as high of a priority as plowing the roads, because that's really important. And also like having that extend out off the peninsula. I find that like the peninsula will be like perfectly plowed and everything will be good, but like you can't walk down Brighton Ave. And like just from living out there, those are like throughways that a lot of people use to get into the city, both on foot, on bike, cars. So I think that would be really important. And if I could be idealistic, I would say to remove parking from a lot of the roads that we
For a parking point, I'll let you all know now that there are 2 parking garages outside of mine and Farrah's apartment that are probably 80% empty. And it costs a fortune to park there, which that needs to change, I think. Because that would offer a lot of free spaces on the roads because people will be able to park their cars in all the garages that we have. In addition to that, yeah, again, with the plowing, I think there is good plowing in the city generally, and I think there are still roads that the bike lanes are neglected in terms of plowing, where like you have the road and then you have the car park and then you have the bike lane, and that bike lane that's in between the sidewalk and the car is actually not plowed. because the plastic is going on the road. So emphasizing plowing on bike lanes just as much as on the roads. And then also looking at where I think a lot of people that live in Portland work in Portland. And so looking at how they commute to work and then getting more bike lane infrastructure so that they're able to commute to work more. If you look at like Forest Ave, how many businesses there are in that road and how there's a bike lane on about like a fourth of it and then it's gone, and then another fourth and then it's gone. So yeah, just having more consistency with that too.
That feels like a good place to wrap, unless anyone has, well, actually, just come talk to us. We'll all be hanging out and nerding out over gear and drinking beer until about 9. So what do you think? Can we do it? Are we on our way to becoming the winter cycling capital of the world? So before we wrap and move over to the show and tell / gear demo portion of the evening, just a few people that we want to thank. Of course, our panelists, Ali, Danny, and Dave. Sharing expertise with us. Thanks to Emma and Ainsley and Winston for organizing this. The Portland Bike Party, the Portland Gear Hub, and I don't want to get this wrong, the Portland Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. And of course, thanks to Oxbow for hosting us. And thanks to all of you for being an awesome audience, making this fun and interactive. I learned so much. So thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
Let's drink some beer.